Hi everyone. Today we did get a very slight pullback on the NASDAQ, and then we got continuation higher after the rally through yesterday's session. All of the fall came in the pre-market on the Monday, and now we got continuation here to that 55 EMA on the hourly chart, and the trend line in here structurally still looks short-term bullish, but it's going to look a little choppy here as we head into FOMC day. Let's take a look at the longer-term charts and see if we can find some direction. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In the news today, we got Google reclassifying the United States as a sensitive country. Definitely interesting to see that. Not something I would have expected. They say they reserve this for the most sensitive countries here, alongside of China and Russia after they renamed the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. For argument's sake, I think you can make a decent argument that the Gulf of Mexico / Gulf of America does make sense to be the Gulf of America because America is the continent versus the United States of America, which is the country. But beyond that here, them relabeling us with China, Russia, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq does seem ridiculous, honestly, on the side of Google. This just continues to play into the hands of those who are critical of Gemini, critical of the things that Gemini has done. They've been inaccurate, and they are generally inaccurate on the side of woke, which has not worked out very well for them. So interesting to see this. America, a sensitive country in the eyes of Google. They do mention here it is focused around the geo division, around maps, because that is where this change is taking place. This is obviously a huge app, 2 billion monthly users. And you can see here they are replying on X, getting questions around this official change. Supposedly it's already happened, but they have not made the change. The other one was Mount McKinley to Mount Denali, back to Mount McKinley. It'll be interesting to see if that change takes place as well. Honestly, I think this is more risky for Google than it is worthwhile. They really should stay out of politics. If the government says Gulf of America, they should stick with what the US government is saying. Moving over to Fear and Greed Index, we stepped up to a 44. It says 38 yesterday. I think we were a little bit higher than that. This site can be a little bit shaky sometimes, but it says 44 right now. Slight dip here, slight rally out. We'll see if that continues to rally through here. Momentum, still extreme fear on strength. Breadth looks a little bit more interesting. That continues to improve here. Interesting to see that continuing to improve. Didn't even dip down with the move that we saw yesterday with DeepSeek. Put call ratio still very, very low. Extreme greed there. Volatility pulling back after the spike yesterday. Safe haven demand did see a slight step up, but still in fear. Junk bonds still have not moved. We've been here for nearly a month. Moving over to earnings here just for a moment. Boeing continues to be terrible, but apparently their plan to recover was actually quite good, and the stock did rebound a little bit on that. Lockheed Martin continues to do extremely well. That checks out. Starbucks also beating. Curious to see what their stock price did here after hours. Then for tomorrow, Microsoft, Meta, Tesla, ASML, T-Mobile, Services Now, IBM. Absolutely massive for tomorrow. General Dynamics also in there. NASDAQ in there. And then for Thursday, you have Apple, Visa, MasterCard, Thermo Fisher, Caterpillar, Comcast, Blackstone, Sherwin-Williams, Altria, Intel. They've been a bit of a dumpster fire. I want to see how they're doing with the move now, with NVDA going down a little bit. And that'll wrap it up for the Thursday. And then moving over to the economic calendar here, just for a moment, you can see core durable goods, a little bit worse than expectations. Month-over-month orders, way worse than expectations. Interesting to see that. Markets didn't really care about that, but that is way worse. Minus 2.2 versus the 0.3 expectation. Minus 2 on the previous, also revised down from minus 1.1%. So interesting to see that. Consumer confidence, still above the 100 line, but worse than expectations. Fed GDP, whatever that number was not the expectation. We ended up getting 3.2, so that was good. And then looking at tomorrow, of course, FOMC in the afternoon. Basically 100% chance that we're going to get a pause. Definitely curious to what the forecast is going to be. Definitely curious around the comments, especially now with the new administration. That could be interesting. I actually don't expect this Fed to be super volatile relative to some of the others, but you never know. And then for Thursday, GDP for the Eurozone, GDP for the US for Q4, as well as price index there, pending home sales, interesting as well. Moving over to Max Pain. Max Pain still $5.99. Stock price a little bit above that. Put call ratio still extremely high at a 3.8. So not expecting markets to fall a lot. The first put wall there is 590. So you could argue maybe we have a little bit of downside, 0.5%, 1%, somewhere in there before the end of the week is over. But I am not expecting to get below 590. So huge options, 153,000 at 590. Market's expecting to stay relatively flat in my opinion. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the SPY here, up 0.86%. Big recovery on the back of the big move yesterday, which was super bearish. We were bullish through the mid-session like we talked about in the opener. Momentum continues to fade here. Interesting. RSI continues to bounce off the SMA. Looks good there. Broke the level, 599, broke the trend here, broke the next level, 603, got all the way up to 604. It's falling a smidgen after hours. Not super worried about that. At this point, I would be looking for the gap fill. The gap fill here to that Friday session is going to be 607.97. So with that move, that's about $3 higher, about 0.5% higher. That's what I'd be looking for here. Again, 607.03 is my level. If it can get above that and hold, I would expect higher highs. Even with this move here, remember, I expected this going into the weekend. We had the big rally out, came in, retested the 21. This is what I was hoping for. I didn't think it would look like this, but we retested the zone, got a big push out of the zone. Everything for me says that's relatively bullish. Of course, there's a ton of volatility coming in with the various earnings and the FOMC, but so far so good on my plan. Again, you have the potential for the gap fill. That could be an area of resistance. 607, like I said, is the level. That is basically where we finished on that Friday session before we got the big gap down, but short term, this still looks good for me, and I would expect it to push through there, at least based on what we've seen so far, pending all of the earnings and FOMC. And then a quick look here at the Tasty charts. We can see we pushed into bullish territory. We took out the trailing stop here at 595, pushed well above that 605 here, pulled back to 603, holding at the 8 EMA. Right now, up and to the right on the short term, ATR trailing stop 599.93. Everything says a little bit bullish here in the short term after the pullback here. Obviously, your longer time frames are still going to be bearish, but short time frames, like I said, do look a little bit bullish here. Breakout here, retest, continuation higher, looking for another higher low potentially. Everything looks pretty good in the short term. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, similar thesis, up a little bit stronger, 1.5%. Obviously, it took a bigger hit into the dip, but it has recovered a little better here. We broke above 519.48, which was my level, so clean push through there, right to the trend here. The trend is a little concerning. We closed right on it. After hours falling just a smidgen there, but momentum flat. Want to see that step up tomorrow, get the continuation for the gap fill. That would be great. We're still coming off of the high, lower high here, so that is also concerning. If we get the gap fill and reject, that's going to be catastrophic. But for now, still looking for the gap fill. You can see on the RSI, we're back above the SMA. Definitely had some volume on the push here. Would have liked to see that kind of continue higher in the after hours, not so much. Based on what we're seeing right now, you can see 55 EMA like we talked about in the opener there. That is currently at 522.21. Key zone of resistance right at the trend, right at the 55. 144 also in there. As long as we hold 519.50, we're in good shape. Want to see the higher low here. You can see the breakout, retest 21, continuation higher. Everything says short-term bullish, just like we saw on the SPY charts. Doesn't look as good structurally, but for now, you do have a series of higher highs and higher lows, waiting to see if this medium time frame matters here on the daily chart. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell managed to stay just barely positive, 0.11, held the level 226.02 on a closing basis. And then looking at the Dow here, positive there as well, about 0.25%. Momentum did step down. We're almost overbought. The Dow's looked extremely strong, but continues to go higher. We're basically right at the all-time highs once again on the Dow. And like I said on the Russell, 226.02 is the level. As long as that holds, we're in good shape. And it seems to be doing so. We tested the low from the previous day, held that level, finished basically unchanged, only up 25 cents on the day. Moving over to the Mag 7 just for a moment. Very strong day there, 2.3%. Momentum back to bullish. RSI retest came in, touched the zone. We're back to the highs of the zone. If it breaks from here and heads to this trend line, that's going to be crazy. Up in the 346 area at this point, it seems likely. That would take you just past your all-time highs, which are back here around the 342 area. Overall, this looks really bullish, which should be good for the NASDAQ. Speaking of Mag 7, looking at Apple and Microsoft, these had some absolutely massive days. 3.65% for Apple. Huge reversal right to the 21 EMA, right to the 55 EMA. We'll see if it breaks through here or not. Momentum swinging. Everything looks really strong there after this bigger fall. Had a pretty much a double bottom in here right at the trend. Looks very strong there. Critical zone though, 237.23 is the level. And then look at Microsoft. 2.9% broke through all of this structure, broke through my level 444. We're right back to the highs here. Fully round trip that move on the back of DeepSeek, and now we are headed back towards 453 in my opinion. It's down smidgen after hours, but I wouldn't expect that to hold. I think we're going to head back to these levels here. And then if that breaks, your all-time high is just a little bit beyond that. So Microsoft looking very, very strong after this break of consolidation of trends and levels. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla was up 0.25%. NVIDIA was the big hitter here, nearly 9% up after hitting these trend structures here. Let's go ahead and extend this out. Maybe that's where we're headed to. Again, back up to this trend, 134 potentially. You got the 144 EMA in there as well at 129.19. We'll see if it comes into this zone. Like I said, 134. Still got the level 135, so a couple of levels to watch in here for NVIDIA. If it comes in and retests this 144 and sells, that would be interesting. It's down about $1, a little bit more than $1 actually. Finished almost at 129 and we're at 127.66. So a little bit of selling off of this level here. If it rejects from there, that is going to be very, very bad. So we'll see. Critical day here for NVIDIA tomorrow, in my opinion. And then Tesla, really very little change from yesterday. 55 EMA is your support at 386.59. Until that breaks, you are still a little bit bullish, in my opinion. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Amazon was up 1.16, momentum bullish, RSI bullish, continuing to go here. All-time highs for Amazon, looks very strong. Google up a smidgen, 1.7% off of the level. 193.31 was the level. We tested it yesterday, held it again here today, and then bounced from that level. Looking to see if we can maybe get up there and get the gap fill back into this area. Either way, we still have a series of higher lows and kind of very slightly higher highs. Still cannot get above this trend structure, so we'll see what happens. Are we going to push back up to there? If we do, that's going to be around the 204 area. Moving over to Meta and Broadcom. Meta continues to be an absolute rocket ship, 2.19%. Momentum very bullish, overbought now as we head into its earnings. Definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there. Potentially we push up to the trend, 750. That would be crazy. Seems like not that long ago this was a $180 stock, but now we're back into the 600s, almost 700s here for Meta. Looks very, very strong. And then looking at Broadcom, positive 2.5% after the huge down day, 17.5% down. 55 EMA is your support at 202.96. Still below the trend structure here. I would say this is still at least a little bit bullish. Did not recover nearly as well as NVIDIA today. Interesting to see that. And then just like that on staples and discretionaries, big flip here again. This has been pretty interesting. Very, very strong push on staples the previous day, 2.7%, and then flips down 1.5%, nearly round tripping that entire move on the short time frames. Very interesting. 79.90 was the level. Should have assumed once we broke below it, retested, that we were going to see a bigger breakdown. Now at this point, I think we're going to head to here, 77.90, 21 EMA. If it holds in here, that could be very, very good. If it breaks through here, we're probably headed back down to these levels in here around 75. So it'll be interesting to see. We had the big move. I thought it would continue a little further, but not so much, at least for now. And then looking at discretionaries, very, very slightly positive, still above the trend, still in this consolidation as we head into earnings. Moving over to 20 and 50-day breadth, saw a little bit of a pullback here on breadth. Nothing crazy yet. We're still in the same range we've been in on the 20-day, but momentum continues to fade. RSI right here, if it's going to break, it's probably going to do it here soon. And then looking at 50-day, right to the level 52.81. We talked about this zone being potentially resistance. Momentum continues to fade on the market breadth. We did get very close to overbought conditions at a 68.63. I'm sure we touched it at one point here, but then we pulled back slightly, waiting to see if this is going to hold in here. Markets might be just slightly done. Mag 7 still looks very strong, but overall breadth seems to be fading just a little bit. Moving over to the dollar did not do a whole lot today. You can see a little bit of a gap up right to the level 108 continues to be your major resistance. 144 EMA in there as well on the hourly chart. You can see it here on the daily as well. Came into the zone, could not get above it. And then for tomorrow's session, for the Wednesday, you can see we're already just a little bit negative there with the gap down on the open. Momentum says this should still keep going to the upside, but in the short term, RSI momentum says this should go a little bit lower. So daily chart, potentially higher, hourly, potentially lower. So mixed signals for now. I would expect maybe a little bit more sideways chop, and then we'll see what happens from there. Moving over to bonds, JNK and TLT were basically unchanged, down 6 cents here, down 6 cents here, the same movement. After hours, it's up a little bit, still in the same structure. Both of these still look a little bit bullish to me. Moving over to the VIX here just for a moment, you can see that bigger breakdown right to the trend. This trend continues to be relevant. If it's going to hold the trend, it needs to do it here. That's why I'm a little bit concerned heading into tomorrow, but for now, big bear candle. You can absolutely get the candle break continuation to 14.7. That would be interesting, but if it holds the trend here and we start to see this spike up, it's going to be very concerning as we head into FOMC and all of the major earnings coming out tomorrow after hours. Moving over to my accounts, I managed to make a little bit of money here. You can see it says 170. I think it was about that. After hours, you can see it's down just a smidgen, so that's cutting into it a little bit. IWM up just a smidgen after hours, so that's helping out potentially. In terms of positions, you can see I put back on my covered call positions here. With that level break to the upside on the Qs, I got into a more bullish position. Obviously not quite bullish enough. You can see the shares are in profit there, bought in at 520.25, and we are quite a bit higher than that now. And then I did put on the covered call here, 522 for $2.30 credit. You can see we're still out of the money there, but it's in a little bit of a losing position because of how strong it was. So expecting this money to come in tomorrow, and then potentially that another $2.30 per, so somewhere around $500 credit there. Looking to collect that in tomorrow's session, we'll see. And then looking at the IWM, like I said, 227, same position as yesterday for $1.14 this time. Held that through the session, just rolled it out a day, continuing to collect credit on that position as it continues to be stable. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of Google's comments. What do you think about them classifying us with Russia and China? Do you agree? Otherwise, what do you think about the charts? Are we going to go higher? Are we going to get the gap fill and break down? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe. If you got any value out of this video, make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.